Thank you for joining us for episode 4 of Cannabiz and Company. Today, I am joined by one of our security experts. We have David Beckett of 710 Security. Hello, David.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Jamie. Thanks for having me.
It's always great to have you. I'm sure some of you recognize David's face. He comes to our events, and so happy to have him and talk about his business, 710 Security. So first of all, tell us a little bit about your business, 710.
Well, 710 Security is a security company based out of Denver, Colorado, and we're geared for the cannabis sector. We obviously do some security work outside of it, but we are completely designed to support the cannabis facilities growing nationwide.
Okay, awesome. And so you said you're there in Colorado. What is your background and what brought you to the cannabis industry?
Well, a little bit of an odd story. It was a stroke of good luck, I guess. I moved to Colorado in 2008, right before we got to vote on Amendment 64. So with that, I already owned a security company. I moved out here and I created a company called High Tech Security, with the pun intended of being high and being a technician. So with that, we became ADT dealers. We had about 7 or 8 ADT dealers we were doing work for. And then all of a sudden, legalization happened for the medical market. And a lot of people needed security systems with the new regulations that were written. And ADT came in and started to sell a lot of these dispensaries and these new grow operations systems, and the next day actually did not service them. So with that, I was the subcontractor dealer. I was the one kind of getting yelled at all the time by the clients, wondering why I couldn't take care of them, and corporate ADT was literally telling us that we couldn't service those because they could lose their federal clients. So that opened the door. I honestly didn't. I wish I could say I jumped in on that and just completely shut the door and only did cannabis security at that point, but the business wasn't that good. There wasn't that much work at that time, and it took about 3 or 4 years for us to do that. So that's pretty much how the evolution of cannabis security happened here a little bit in Denver, Colorado.
So is it safe to say that maybe you're one of the founding fathers of security and cannabis? I mean, you've been in this game since 2008.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, and especially with our clientele. Just recently this year, we acquired Leaf Alert. Leaf Alert was the actual first cannabis security company to exist since 2009, and their clients go back to then. So when we acquired Leaf Alert, there's no doubt about it, from our clientele to our history and our service history, we are pretty much the founding members of the cannabis security market.
That's really awesome. Well, so with like comparing the Michigan market, Colorado market, what do you see? What are the things that are similar or different between Colorado regulations for security and the ones here in Michigan or even other states?
You know, every state's unique, and I do believe Michigan is going to go through some hurting, growing pains with the way the regulations are written around security specifically. They're very vague. They actually don't even label the resolution requirement that they're looking for when it comes down to clear or facial recognition shot. So they're really not even giving a guideline to provide an integrator or a client or their licensee, in a sense, the actual number what they're going to need to be compliant. It's leaving it up in the air for an inspector to be angry that day or happy that day to kind of write you up. So that's going to cause a huge problem through the growth factor that we just watched and develop here. We had pretty strict requirements here in Colorado, but they were so poor that they actually allowed analog signals. So think about it, a VCR style quality. They're allowing that. That technology still exists today in the security world. So with the way Michigan regulations are written, you're allowed to put in a VCR style quality system. So it's hard for an integrator like myself that kind of knows the way that the curve is going to go in the future of the regulations, and kind of their intentions and what they're meant for when the event actually happens. They're not going to be there for the client, and they're going to learn the hard way. We're still today if you see our Facebook posts and whatnot, we're still walking into facilities today here in Denver that are not compliant on the security end, terrible systems, but they've been able to operate and maintain for years just because either they got lucky, or inspector didn't catch them during that time. They weren't looking specifically for that, or they weren't savvy in that area, but they're literally not compliant today when we walk in still. So just fast forward that 10 years from now in the Michigan market, you're still going to have non-compliant systems. So that's what I'm trying to avoid, and trying to provide services to those clients so they don't have to learn the hard way.
Right. And how have you seen regulations evolve since the beginning when Colorado implemented their new commercial licensing system, and how it is now? Did you see that there were a lot of changes between, at the beginning and now?
Yes, there is going to be. It seems like when they want to change some laws, or they always try to tweak something, to see like they are making some sort of traction on that. Specifically in Colorado, they really made some huge changes when recreational came place. We had since '09 we had the medical market, and then 14 hit with rec, and then 15 all those facilities were kind of getting opened up. They changed regulations on that, specifically one that people still aren't compliant for today, and it's around a battery backup. They used to actually mandate 15 minutes for a battery backup situation in case your facility lost power. And then they realized it just wasn't enough, in a sense, what happened with that time span. Then they went kind of crazy and wrote a 4-hour backup rule. And at that point in time, APC, Minuteman, they didn't really make 4-hour backups for these larger camera systems. So great idea, but the implementation of it was really difficult. And with that, no one implemented it. And then there was no regulation to it, as in they didn't go in and inspect for that or fine for it. So it was like, why did they write that regulation in the first place? But if they're not going to enforce it, so that's the caveats of why they actually write some laws and whatnot. So yeah, they come up with new rules every year. They'll tweak some things here and there.
So what is the biggest mistake that you see made with businesses and their security systems in the cannabis sector?
I hate to say it, but they kind of want to skimp out in a sense. They don't really want to put the money towards the security piece. And when you have the lower end regulations that are written very similar to what you got in Michigan, you're kind of allowed to skate that line. You're allowed to get a really Costco style security system, and you notice that Costco sells those security systems, but they don't have them installed for a reason. So with that, you want to kind of just go above and beyond a little bit. Maybe even look at your next state. Ohio here, which touches the border, they went the opposite direction completely. They really went buck wild when it came down to their security regulations around their program. But they did them. I could tell you what, the facilities that I have in Ohio, they're not going to be broken into. The product's not going to go out on the street. So isn't that the main goal? Yeah, the cost of entry is going to be a lot higher because of just that security system.
Right. And I would hate for some of these operators to learn the hard way, because that's just a lot more money out the window.
You always, just the money factor, right, of getting robbed, the cost of the damage that occurs during the break-in. Sometimes no one ever really wants to account for that, and it's really impossible to quote how much that would be. But it's upwards in the $5,000 to $15,000 sometimes, just the damage that they cause in this facility is not taking the product out. And then let's just talk about the fine. If you don't have your mandated video retention time that they're asking for, they could fine you $10,000 to $15,000. So just look at all those options and all those things that could happen to you, and then maybe say, hey, let me at least throw 50% of that money towards the security system to prevent that happening, and you'll probably just fine. So yeah, it's really the cost factor.
Right. So, second to last question, what is the biggest piece of advice that you would give someone that is thinking about starting a licensed business in the cannabis industry?
Based around security.
Based around security.
Make sure you hire someone that has a little bit of knowledge or experience with it. You know, I said it before, there's, you know, everybody has done security. All these security companies, they've all done, you know, systems in McDonald's or 7-Elevens or, you know, the Family Dollar. They all exist, right? They all think they could put in a camera system just because it's a little bit more complicated and the money is in the cannabis sector right now. What you'll realize is that you didn't really get what you paid for in a sense of why you thought you did on the regulations and, you know, all the little things on why you spent extra money to be protected in the cannabis space. Just make sure you have that. The experience goes a long way. New companies come up every day and some of them will be fantastic, some of them won't. You're going to take a gamble, but experience, I think, make sure you do some homework.
Awesome. And our last question, how do people get a hold of you?
You can reach us a couple different ways. Our 800 number is 888-420-1710. We kind of make it a little easier for the cannabis.
That's amazing. Easy to remember. That's awesome.
Easy to remember. And with that, we also have 710security.com LTD. I'm sorry, 710security-ltd.com. And we're also in the works of working with another cannabis connection member to redo our webpage and everything else as well. So you can reach us at as well, or directly to me at david@710security.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. David Beckett with 710 Security. And thank
Thank you,
you
Jamie.
all for joining us, and see you next time. Bye.
Have a good one.